I always believed skepticism was a kind of armor. If I trusted only in what could be measured, verified, or proven, then I'd be safe from false hope, from superstition, from the madness that swirls just beneath the surface of everyday life. It's why I became a journalist. The truth, stripped of emotion, had always been enough for me. Until Romania. It began with a short email from my editor. Need something unsettling, rural, dark, unexplained. Look into this place, Valea Neagra. Old legends, people disappearing, dig deep. No attachments, no pleasantries, just a single location and a directive. 6 months earlier, I would have demanded more. I would have asked for sources, for the budget, for backup. But 6 months earlier, I had a wife, Lauren. She died in a car accident on a rainy night in October. I was driving. She was asleep beside me. I saw the truck too late. I walked away with a broken arm. She didn't walk away at all. Since then, I've been existing, not really living. I sleep with the TV on because silence feels too loud. I drink too much. I read the same books over and over, but can't remember the endings. I work because work distracts me from thinking, from feeling. So when the assignment came, I didn't hesitate. A remote village no one talks about? Vanishing people and cryptic folklore? Sure. At least it wasn't another press junket or political exposé. At least it would get me away. The flight from New York to Bucharest was a blur of airports, stale coffee, and strangers coughing in too close seats. I spent most of it staring out the window, watching clouds slide past like slow-moving ghosts. When I landed, it was dusk. Bucharest Airport had a strange stillness to it. Not quiet, there were people everywhere, but something about the place felt suspended, like time moved differently there. The Romanian language echoed all around me, harsh consonants, ancient vowels, rhythmic and unfamiliar. I could barely understand the signage, but I managed to find a driver waiting for me with a cardboard sign, Mr. Pedru. His name was Pedru. He spoke broken English, which made him better than most. I showed him the village name on my phone, and he squinted at it for a long second before nodding slowly. Far, very far. Forest road, bad road. Good, I muttered, half to myself. The worse, the better. He looked at me sideways, but said nothing. We left the city quickly. The buildings grew smaller, older, more spread out. Gas stations gave way to fields. Then the fields gave way to trees, dark, old, whispering trees that lined both sides of a narrow road like guards watching us pass. Pedro didn't speak much. When he did, it was mostly warnings. People no like stranger in Valea Neagra is no good place. You go, you come back fast, yes? I nodded, but didn't commit. Part of me hoped the place would be boring, just old people and fairy tales. Another part, darker, quieter, wanted something real, something that couldn't be explained away. It took 6 hours to get there. The road grew thinner and more twisted the deeper we went. Fog settled low across the hills like a creeping animal. Every now and then, Pedro would mutter something in Romanian under his breath. I didn't ask what. When we finally arrived, it was past midnight. No street lights, no shops, no traffic, just a handful of stone houses and one crumbling inn that looked like it hadn't seen paint since the Cold War. Pedro dropped my bags at the steps and handed me a small wooden token. For luck, he said. It was carved with a symbol I didn't recognize, like an eye with a line through it. Thanks, I replied, trying not to look unsettled. You're not coming in? He shook his head quickly. No, I go back, no stay. Then he got in the car, turned around, and drove away without another word. I stood there for a moment, alone in the fog, listening to the sound of the engine fade into the trees. Then I turned and entered the inn. The lobby was small, musty, and dimly lit by a single bulb that flickered now and then like it was nervous. Behind the counter sat a woman in her 50s, reading a book with yellowed pages. Her eyes lifted when I approached. "David Miller?" she asked in English, her accent thick. I nodded. "You were expecting me?" She didn't answer that, just handed me a heavy brass key and motioned toward a narrow staircase. "Room 3, end of the hall. No hot water after 10. Breakfast is bread." I almost smiled. Fair enough. The stairs creaked under my weight as I climbed. The hallway smelled of dust and something older. Wood rot, maybe. My room was small but clean. A bed, a desk, and a tiny window that looked out into nothing but trees. The forest pressed right up to the village like it wanted in. I sat on the edge of the bed and took a long breath. I should have been exhausted, but I felt wired, alert, like the air here was thicker, heavier. I unpacked slowly, then placed Pedro's token on the nightstand, unsure whether to laugh at it or be grateful. Then I turned off the light, laid back, and tried to sleep. I didn't dream. At least, not yet.
I woke to the sound of silence. Not the kind of silence you find in cities, where there's always some undercurrent of life, traffic, voices, electricity humming through the walls. This was something else. A kind of hollow, unnatural quiet, like the village had stopped breathing. Outside, the morning light struggled through the window, filtered by the thick canopy of trees that surrounded the place like a fence. Fog still clung to the ground, curling along the cobblestones in slow, deliberate tendrils. I checked my phone. No signal. No Wi-Fi either. Of course not. I dressed quickly and headed downstairs. The woman from the night before was gone, but on the counter sat a small plate with a slice of dark bread and a chipped cup of black coffee. I ate in silence, then stepped outside to look around. The village felt paused. Stone houses lined a single winding road that disappeared into the forest at both ends. The walls were weather-stained, roofs slouched under years of snow and neglect. A few wooden fences surrounded sad little gardens, most overgrown or empty. I saw no cars, no children, no sound. Then a voice. "You are the American?" I turned. A man stood a few feet away, his hands buried in a thick wool coat. Mid-60s, thin, with a hard face shaped by long winters and harder lives. He squinted at me like I was something stuck to his boot. "That's right. David Miller. I'm here to—" "You should not stay long." His tone was flat, not aggressive, just final. "I'm a journalist. I'm writing a piece on folklore, legends." "There are no legends here." A beat of silence. "Only warnings," he added, then turned away, vanishing behind a heavy wooden gate that creaked shut behind him. I stood there for a minute, unsure whether to be annoyed or unnerved. Eventually, I wandered deeper into the village. The further I went, the more the road narrowed, until it was just a dirt path. Here and there I saw faces behind curtains, eyes watching. No one else spoke to me. A rusted sign half buried in weeds read, "Valea Niagara, founded 1631. They do not come, we do not leave." What the hell did that mean? By mid-morning, I found the only public building still open, a chapel. Small, crooked and built entirely of stone. It leaned like it had been trying to fall for years but couldn't quite finish the job. The wooden door was cracked open, so I stepped inside. Dust danced in the shafts of light cutting through stained glass. The pews were empty. The altar was simple. No gold, no grandeur, just a cross, old and splintering, and a painting behind it that made me stop cold. It showed a forest, this forest, and in the center, a ring of stones glowing red. Around them stood figures in cloaks, faces hidden. Above them, a crack in the sky, as if the heavens had been torn open. Painted at the bottom were words in Latin. I took a picture and translated it later. From the dark they watch. From the breach they speak. Before I could turn, I heard footsteps behind me. A young woman stood near the entrance, maybe mid-30s, sharp features, hair tied back. She didn't look like the others, less wary, more curious. "You are not from here." "No, I'm here about the stories, the disappearances, I hesitated, unsure how much to say. "The forest." She nodded slowly. "My name is Elena. You should not speak of the forest." "That's what everyone keeps saying. Why?" She looked at me for a long time. "Because it hears." She gestured for me to follow her outside. I did. Elena lived near the edge of the village, in a house slightly better kept than the others. Inside it smelled like herbs and wood smoke. Shelves lined with books, mostly old, mostly in languages I couldn't read. She made tea without asking. We sat at a small table by the window. "You want answers, but you won't like them." "I don't need to like them, I just need the truth." She stared into her cup. "They say the forest isn't just old, it's hungry. That it remembers things, people, sounds, footsteps, and it keeps them." "Like an echo?" "No, like a mouth." I didn't respond right away. "They say the village was built here to keep something in, not to keep people safe from the forest, but to keep the forest safe from us. That if the stones are disturbed, the veil will thin." She looked up, her eyes serious. "I know how that sounds. It sounds like a story. It isn't." I didn't press her further that day. She offered me an old book, a collection of local myths, and told me to read the chapter marked with a ribbon. That night, back in my room, I opened it. The chapter was titled, "The Ones Who Walk Backwards," and beneath the title, a phrase that sent a chill straight through me. "Do not follow the voice that knows your name." I didn't sleep well, not because of the cold, but because just before dawn, I thought I heard something outside my window. A voice, and it said, "David."
The morning after hearing my name whispered in the fog, I woke with a pounding headache and a sinking feeling in my gut. The village felt colder, the shadows longer. I told myself it was just nerves, the kind that comes with being somewhere unfamiliar, alone, and a little too quiet. But deep down, I knew it was more. I decided to explore the inn more thoroughly. After all, if there was any place in Valea Neagra that might hold answers, it was probably here, buried in some forgotten corner. The inn's lobby was as sparse in daylight as it was at night. A cracked window let in a thin beam of sun that dusted the worn wooden floor. I noticed a narrow staircase descending beside the counter, a door leading to the basement, I assumed. The door was locked, but after a few knocks, the woman from the night before appeared. Her name was Magda. She eyed me suspiciously, but when I mentioned I was researching local legends, she hesitated. Then, surprisingly, she unlocked the door. "Careful," she warned. "Not everything down there wants to be found." The basement smelled of damp earth and old wood. Crates, barrels, and discarded furniture filled the small space coated with years of dust. I started sifting through the clutter, drawn to a battered wooden chest in the corner. Inside were dozens of old books, some with leather covers cracked with age, others wrapped in cloth yellowed with time. One volume caught my eye, a diary bound in rough hide, the spine barely holding together. No title. I opened it carefully. The handwriting was cramped and hurried. The entries dated back to 1723. "I am Father Andre, monk of this village's chapel. The nights grow darker. The forest's hunger is no longer a whisper, but a roar. We are the watchers, the keepers of the stones that hold the veil, but the veil weakens." I flipped through more pages, each filled with similar warnings, descriptions of strange phenomena, disappearances, and a ritual that must never be broken. A drawing near the middle of the book made me freeze. A circle of stones with faint glowing markings, just like the painting in the chapel. Around the circle, hooded figures. The last entry was smudged and torn, but ended with a desperate plea. "If you find this, know the forest watches, the veil thins, and the breach calls. Do not listen to the voices. Do not answer." I sat back, heart hammering. Was this a warning or a story? That night, I read the diary by the flickering candlelight in my room. The words seemed to pulse, alive with fear and urgency. The more I read, the less sure I became of what was real. Then a sudden knock at the door. I froze. "David?" a voice whispered. It was Elena. I opened the door cautiously. "We need to talk," she said, eyes wide. "The village, the forest, it's awake."
When Elena stepped inside, the room felt colder, as if the shadows themselves had followed her through the door. Her eyes flicked nervously toward the window, where the forest seemed to press in closer with every passing minute. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I needed to know more," I replied, clutching the old diary. "The manuscript talks about a veil, a breach. What does it mean?" She paced slowly, then stopped and looked at me directly. "The veil is the boundary between our world and theirs, the ones who wait beyond. The breach is when that boundary thins, when the forest breathes and shifts and lets things cross over." I swallowed hard, feeling an icy knot tighten in my stomach. "They watch, they listen, and they call." I wanted to laugh, to dismiss it all as superstition and stories told to scare children, but the weight in Elena's eyes told me she believed every word. She told me about the stone circle, deep in the heart of the forest, the same one in the painting and the manuscript. She said it was a gateway, a liminal place where the veil was weakest. The last time it opened was 100 years ago, she said. The villagers barely survived. Since then, we've kept it sealed. I asked how. The ritual, the stones, the chants, the guardians. Guardians? She hesitated, then said, people chosen to protect the village, to keep the forest's hunger at bay. A chill ran down my spine. And you? Are you one of them? She shook her head. No, but I help, because if it opens again, none of us will be safe. Later, she led me to the edge of the village, where the trees stood taller, darker, and thicker than anywhere else. A cold wind stirred the leaves, carrying whispers that seemed almost human. We stood in silence. Then, from deep within the woods, a faint murmur reached my ears. A voice calling my name. I looked at Elena, but she said nothing. "Did you hear that?" I asked. She nodded. "They're waking." Before I could say more, a sudden rustle broke the stillness. Something moved between the branches, just beyond sight. My heart pounded as the shadows shifted. That night, I dreamed of the stone circle. Flames licking the ancient rocks, figures cloaked in darkness, chanting in a language older than memory, and a voice, cold and hungry, whispering promises I couldn't refuse. I woke gasping. The forest outside my window was alive, and I wasn't sure I wanted to leave. I don't know why I went back to the forest alone. Maybe I wanted answers. Maybe I wanted proof. Or maybe, just maybe, some part of me wanted to be claimed by whatever was waiting there. The villagers had started avoiding me completely. Faces vanished behind windows, doors locked when I passed. Even Magda, the innkeeper, stopped speaking. Only Elena still looked me in the eyes, and even she seemed less certain now, like something had shifted. Before I left, she grabbed my wrist and whispered, "If you hear her voice, don't answer, no matter how familiar it sounds." I didn't ask who her was. I just nodded and walked into the trees. The path disappeared after 10 minutes. Moss-covered rocks, twisted roots, and silence. Not even birds. The deeper I went, the more the forest felt like a living thing, breathing, pulsing, ancient. Then I found it. The stone circle. Exactly like in the painting. 9 massive stones, blackened by age and weather, arranged in a perfect ring, each one etched with strange runes, some glowing faintly like embers beneath the surface. The air buzzed, low and deep, like a sound too low for hearing but strong enough to feel in my bones. At the center of the circle lay a flat stone slab, covered in dry leaves, symbols carved deep into its surface. My fingers moved before I could stop them, brushing the dirt away, tracing the lines. And then something gave. A crack, soft and subtle, like old wood splitting under pressure. The ground shuddered. The glow beneath the stones pulsed brighter for a moment, and then faded. And just like that, the quiet returned. But it wasn't the same quiet as before. This one felt wrong. I stepped back, pulse hammering in my ears. The forest around me had changed, not in any visible way, but in feeling. It was heavier, thicker, like the air had teeth now. And then I heard it. A voice. Feminine. Soft. Familiar. "David!" It sounded like Lauren. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. "David, I'm here!" "No, impossible." I shook my head, took a step back. "Help me!" The voice was closer now, behind me. I spun, but nothing was there. Just trees. Just shadows. I ran. Branches scraped my arms, roots caught my boots. I didn't stop until the stone houses came into view through the trees. My lungs burned, my hands shook. I didn't go to the inn. I went straight to Elena's house. She opened the door before I knocked. "You touched it, didn't you?" I didn't answer. "You broke the seal." Her face went pale. She stepped aside and let me in. I sat by the fire, shivering despite the heat. "Elena," I said slowly, "I heard her. I heard Lauren." She didn't speak right away. Then, "That is not your wife." I looked up. "They know what hurts you. They use it. The voices are how they feed. They whisper, and if you follow, you don't come back the same." I tried to make sense of it. I really did. But my brain was tangled in knots. It sounded like Lauren. Not just her voice, her tone, her rhythm, her soul. How could something mimic that? Elena handed me a small wooden charm. Same symbol Petru had given me when I arrived. "Wear this. Don't take it off. If the breach fully opens, you'll need every protection you can get." I clutched the charm in my fist and nodded. But that night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't sure if I wanted protection anymore. Some part of me wanted to hear her again. I started forgetting things. At first, it was small, where I had left my notebook, the time of day, whether I had eaten. But then it got stranger. One morning, I woke up with mud on my boots and scratches on my hands. I had no memory of leaving the inn. Magda stared at me in silence as I came down the stairs, her mouth a tight line, like she wanted to speak but didn't dare. "You went out," she finally said. "When?" "Last night, after the bell rang." I didn't remember a bell. I didn't remember anything. Elena came to see me later that day. I told her about the missing time. She nodded grimly. "They call you in your sleep. That's how it begins." "What begins?" She hesitated. "The unraveling." I laughed bitterly, but it caught in my throat. "You think this is funny?" she snapped. "You broke the seal, David. You let something in. It's not just in the forest anymore. It's in you." I didn't respond. I couldn't, because deep down, I was starting to believe her. That evening, I sat by the window, staring at the tree line. The woods seemed closer than before. The fog was back, thicker, crawling down the hills like it had a mind of its own. Then I saw movement. A figure, not walking, gliding, cloaked, face hidden beneath a dark hood. I blinked, and it was gone. I stood up so fast the chair fell over. I rushed outside, heart pounding. The air was ice in my lungs. "Elena!" I called, running to her house. I knocked until she opened the door. "They're here, not just in the trees, here." She pulled me inside. "There's something you need to see." She led me down to her cellar, a narrow staircase carved into stone. At the bottom, shelves of books, jars of herbs and something that looked like an altar. In the center, a mirror. Old, tall, and cracked through the center. "Elena, what is this?" "Watch." She struck a match and lit a single candle beside it. The flame flickered once, twice, then steadied. And in the mirror, I saw her, Lauren, standing behind me. Her eyes were hollow, her skin pale, but it was her. I turned around. No one was there. "Elena, what the hell?" "They use our dead. They wear their faces like masks. It's how they cross over, through memory, through grief." I stared at the mirror. Lauren was still there. She mouthed something I couldn't hear. "Elena, she's talking to me." "No," Elena said, stepping in front of the glass. "She's not." She blew out the candle. The image vanished. We stood in the dark, breathing, listening. "I'm losing my mind," I whispered. "No," she said. "You're being pulled. There's a difference." Back in my room, I locked the door, placed the charm on the nightstand, and lay in bed fully clothed. I didn't want to sleep. Sleep meant darkness, and lately, darkness meant her. But sometime before dawn, exhaustion won, and I dreamed. Only it didn't feel like a dream. I was standing in the forest again. The stone circle glowed red beneath my feet. The trees bent inward like they were watching. Lauren stood at the edge of the circle. "David, you opened the door. I've been waiting." I stepped toward her, heart screaming. She looked just like I remembered. Warm, kind, broken and beautiful. "I'm so sorry," I said. She tilted her head. "Then come with me." Her hand reached out. I stepped forward and woke up screaming. The mirror across the room, cracked and covered in dust, was fogged from the inside, and someone had written a single word with a finger. "Soon."
The word stayed on the mirror for 2 days. Soon. I scrubbed it off the glass, but it came back every morning. Same finger-drawn letters, same fading mist behind the surface. I stopped sleeping. The forest whispered louder now. Even from the village square, I could hear it breathing. People walked faster, heads down. The fog never fully lifted. The cold dug deeper into my bones. No one spoke to me anymore, not even Magda. The only person who still looked me in the eye was Elena. And even she had started locking her doors at night. It was on the 3rd night without sleep that Elena came to my room in a panic. Her face was pale, her eyes bloodshot. "They're preparing," she said. "For what?" "The eclipse." I stared at her. "What eclipse?" She opened a weathered book, yellowed and fragile. Inside was a calendar, hand-drawn, centuries old. And in the margin, written in Romanian, was a phrase she translated aloud. "When the sun bleeds, the gate opens. When it turns to ash, the veil falls. It happens once every 100 years, and it's happening tomorrow." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. This can't be real. It can't. But it was. The signs were all there. The diary, the seal I'd broken, the voices, the dreams, the village shutting down. It's not just a ritual, it's a reckoning. The villagers don't worship, they bargain. They offer something or someone to keep the breach sealed. I backed away from her. "No," I said, "no. You're the outsider, the one who opened the seal. You broke the boundary. Now they'll try to fix it." I thought of Petru refusing to stay, of the villagers watching me like I was already gone, of Magda slipping something into my food,
something bitter I hadn't tasted before, of the charm, how it had cracked down the middle yesterday morning. They knew. "They'll take me," I said quietly. Elena didn't answer. The day of the eclipse arrived under a sky already bruised with clouds. The sun was a dim disk struggling to shine through the thickening haze. I packed a bag. Journal, recorder, diary, flashlight, knife, small but sharp. Not that I believed it would help, not against them. I left the inn before sunrise. The streets were empty. Doors were barred, windows shuttered. Smoke curled from a few chimneys, but no sound, no movement, except one. Elena waited at the edge of the forest. "I'm coming with you," she said. "No, you stay. They'll come for you at dusk. If you're still in the village, you're dead." We slipped into the woods. The fog wrapped around us like wet cloth. The trees creaked as if protesting our presence. The forest felt aware. We moved fast, hearts racing, until we reached the clearing. The stone circle looked different in daylight, less mystical, more violated, like something ancient and dangerous had been disturbed. I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can stop what's coming. Elena knelt beside the central stone, brushing away leaves. "There's still time. The ritual only completes when the offering is made." Which is me. She didn't deny it. A low hum began to rise from the earth. The stones vibrated, faint but steady. "The eclipse is starting," she said. I looked up. The sky was bleeding, a ring around a darkened sun. "Elena," I said, "if this doesn't work, it has to." We stood together in the center and waited. The light dimmed. Shadows stretched long and thin. The air grew impossibly cold. Then, footsteps. Dozens, coming from all sides. Villagers cloaked in black, faces covered. They surrounded the circle without speaking, without blinking, just watching. Then from the back came her, Magda. Her voice was deep, ancient, not her own. "You opened the gate. You brought the breach." I stood tall. "I'll seal it." She smiled, or maybe the thing inside her did. "You are not strong enough." Suddenly the world bent. I fell to my knees. My head filled with voices, hundreds, maybe thousands of once, all speaking in languages I couldn't understand. Some screamed, some begged, some called my name. Then hers, Lauren's, clear, soft, so close I could feel her breath on my ear. "David," she whispered, "let me in." I clutched the charm Elena gave me. It burned. I squeezed harder. "Let me in," she said again. "You miss me, don't you?" I looked up, and there she was, standing just outside the circle, smiling, beautiful, rotting. Her eyes were empty, her mouth opened wider than any human mouth should open. "Come with me," she said. Elena screamed, "Don't answer!" The villagers began to chant, the stones pulsed, the world shook. I closed my eyes and screamed back, not in words, but in will, in refusal, in pain, in memory. Lauren was gone. This thing was not her, and I would not follow. The light shattered. The chanting stopped. Silence fell. And when I opened my eyes, they were gone. All of them. Only Elena and I remained. The stones were cracked. The sky was blue again. The breach had closed. But the forest still watched, and I knew this wasn't over. Not yet.
I don't remember walking back to the village. One moment I was standing in the shattered circle with Elena, and the next I was on the floor of my room at the inn, covered in dirt, blood on my knuckles, and a voice echoing in the back of my skull. It didn't say my name this time. It said, "We remember." The village never returned to normal. Not that it had been normal before. The fog stayed. The windows stayed shuttered. Magda vanished. No one spoke of her. No one spoke of the ritual, the chanting, or the thing that wore my wife's face. But they looked at me differently. Not with fear, with recognition, like I'd been changed or claimed. Elena didn't say much in the days that followed. We sat together often, mostly in silence. She told me I should leave soon, and I agreed. My flight out of Romania was still booked, barely. I wasn't sure I'd make it back through the forest without something pulling me into the trees. On my last day in Valea Niagara, I walked back to the chapel. The door was still cracked. Inside, the same worn pews, the same altar. But the painting? Gone. In its place, a blank wall. No dust outline, no frame. Just emptiness. I asked the old priest, a man who hadn't said a word to me since I arrived, where it went. He just smiled. They come and go, like dreams or wounds. I didn't understand. Maybe I still don't. When I finally boarded the plane, I expected to feel relief, but as I stared out the window, watching the mountains fade into clouds, I couldn't shake the sense that I hadn't left anything behind. Something had come with me. Back in New York, things were wrong. Not broken exactly, just tilted, slanted, off by 1 degree. Sometimes my reflection lags half a second behind me. Sometimes I wake up and the mirror fogs, even though I haven't showered. Sometimes I hear her humming in the walls. I moved apartments, changed jobs, started therapy. It didn't help. One night I found the charm Elena had given me in my coat pocket. I hadn't worn it since I left. The symbol on it, the eye with a line through it, was cracked clean down the middle, as if it had split under pressure. I started seeing shapes in windows, in subway tunnels, in the reflection of puddles at night. I started hearing footsteps behind me in empty hallways. Then came the notes. Slips of paper under my door, on my windshield, inside books I hadn't opened in years. Always the same message. The veil is thinner here. Last week, I had a dream. The stone circle, the forest, the chanting. But this time, I wasn't in Romania. I was in Central Park. The stones were there, clean, modern, glassy, but still the same formation, still pulsing. Lauren stood in the center, but she wasn't speaking. She was listening. And then I heard it again, that whisper behind her, the same voice from the circle, colder than bone. We cross where memory is deepest. I woke up covered in scratches, blood on my sheets, the mirror fogged. Soon. I've stopped trying to explain it. This isn't just a story about grief or superstition or folklore. This is a warning. You may think the world is rational, that truth is measurable, that monsters only live in forgotten places, buried under dirt and time. But I'm telling you, the breach doesn't need a forest. It just needs an opening, And all it takes is one question whispered in the dark. Would you like to see them again?